All right. Who in here has watched the movie Rudy? Seriously, that's it? Okay. It's one of the top 25 movies of ESPN's top sports movies of all time. It's such a great movie. It's such a great movie and so memorable. We actually, at school, we were talking about like Letterman jackets, because every now and then you have a kid who comes to us late. Like at Ludlow, you have to play for 2 years to get a Letterman jacket. And every now and then you have a kid who'll come along like their senior year and they're this great kid, but they're not there long enough to get their Letterman jacket. But if they work really hard, we're like, we should have a Rudy Award, like an opportunity every now and then to give a kid who's really hard working or a leader in the team to get a jacket even if they didn't start enough or they came late. So we gave a kid the Rudy jacket a year or so ago. He was a senior, I think last year. He was a senior, and he's just this really hard-working kid. So if you don't know the story of Rudy, you need to go watch the movie because it's amazing. But this is a true story of a young man named Daniel Eugene Rudiger. He lived in, where's Notre Dame? Illinois? Indiana. He lived in Indiana, always dreamed of being a Notre Dame Fighting Irish. He really desperately, that was his dream. Growing up, he was going to play football for Notre Dame. And he worked really, really hard. And while he had a great big heart, he did not have a great big body. And so he also had dyslexia. So he didn't have great grades. Even though he worked really hard, he just couldn't get the grades. So he applied, and like so many, they have like I don't know what it is, like 15% acceptance rate of all the people who apply. Very few actually get in. And so he didn't get in because he was neither big enough nor was he smart enough to get in. And so he's like, well, I guess that's it. Dream shattered, move on with life. And he went to work at, I think it was a steel mill. And then he was just living his life. And then his best friend died in an accident at work. And his best friend was like the only person who really believed in him that he could play for Notre Dame. Everyone else is like, you're an idiot. You'll never play for them. You're too small. You'll never get in. But his best friend's like, I believe in you, man. You have what it takes to be Fighting Irish. And so when the best friend died, it was this wake-up call to him. Like, this was his dream for me. This was my dream. And he's the only person who believed in my dream. I'm going to try again. And so he tried to get in, but he couldn't because he didn't have the grades. He couldn't even get into the school. He's like, I'll get into Notre Dame, and then I'll go to the walk-on. And so he couldn't even get in because his grades weren't good enough. But fortunately, a priest in the area just recognized that drive and that heart in him. And even the president of Notre Dame was like, man, I love your heart, but you just don't have the grades. And so between the priest and the president, they got him to apply to Holy Cross College, which was like right there. It's right there in Notre Dame area. They're like, go here for a couple years and get the grades up. Then we can let you in. We'll use those transcripts to get you in. And so he did. He worked at Notre Dame. It was a groundskeeper for the stadium. And he was trying to scrape by. He actually ended up living in the stadium. Like he would sneak in. He'd leave a window open at night, and he'd sneak in and sleep there. And the head groundskeeper guy, finally he realized what was happening, and he liked Rudy, so he left a blanket and pillow for him, so he could live there. So he was living in the stadium, going to Holy Cross College, finally had the grades to get in to the college, so he went to the walk-on tryout for the football team, and the coach is like, man, you really don't have what it takes, but I love your heart. I love that determination you have, the way you push yourself, you get knocked down, you get back up constantly. So I'm going to let you on the team, but I'm going to be honest, you're probably never going to make the game day roster. I didn't know this was a thing until I watched this movie. So they might have 100 people who actually show up to practice, but only 75 get to be on the game day roster. And so there are guys who are on the team going to practice every day, but they can't even make the game day roster. And so the coach is like, I'll let you on the team, but I'm going to be honest, you're probably never going to make the game day roster. So Rudy's on the team. He's showing up every day. He's pushing the seniors. He's getting the crap knocked out of him all the time, and he gets back up constantly. And so his junior year goes by, and the coach says, you know what, man, I just love your heart. So I tell you what, next year, I promise, I will at least put you on the game day roster. I can't promise I'll put you in a game, but I will promise to put you on the roster your senior night, the last game. So Rudy showed up his senior year. He worked really hard, but unfortunately, they got a new coach his senior year, and that coach was not willing to keep the promise of the former coach. And that coach is like, I'm not giving up a spot of someone I might need in the game for you. And so it comes to like the last week, and the coach is like, sorry, man, you're not making the roster. And Rudy is crushed. He's like, I have put all this time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears into this, and you're going to shatter my dream this close to the end. You can't even just put me on the roster. And the coach is like, no, man, sorry about you. And so Rudy's like, fine, I quit the team. If I'm not going to make this, then you're shattering my dreams. I'm out. I'm done. So he walks away, and the head groundskeeper, can't remember his name. His name is like not a name, it's like a word, but whatever. He comes up to him and he says, look, I never told you this, but I used to play for the team. I was on the team. And I quit because they weren't playing me enough. And I assumed they weren't playing me enough because I'm black. And it's been the biggest regret of my life that I quit the team, that I'm the one that quit. He's like, if they hadn't put me in, that's on them, but I regret that I quit. And so Rudy goes back. He's like, if you put me back on can I come back to the team? They let him. While that's happening, all the seniors show up one at a time in the coach's office, and they lay down their jerseys. There's this great moment. They all come in. They're like, I want Rudy to play my place. And they lay down their jersey, and they walk out. Every single lays down their jersey, walks out. I want Rudy to play my place. I want Rudy to play my place. And so the coach finally puts him on the game day roster. His dream is about to come true now if he can just get in the game. And so Rudy is a defensive player, and they're winning. They get to the end of the game, and Notre Dame gets the ball back, and the coach still hasn't put him in. And the coach is like, you know what? We're not going to take a chance offense. We're going to play a nice slow game. We're just going to hold on to the ball for these last couple minutes so that we can assure our win. But the seniors were like, forget that. So they made a different call. They score a quick touchdown, which means that now the defense can take the field. So the coach puts Rudy in on special teams and then lets him stay in for the last couple plays as a defensive player. And his dream of playing for Notre Dame football finally comes true after all those years of work, all that time when it looked impossible, all that time when he thought there's no possible way, and everybody in his life said there's no way. Everyone in his life except the one best friend who died said there's no way, man, you're not big enough, you're not fast enough, you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough. It's impossible. Give it up. But he did it because one person believed in him. And I feel like God paved a way. The fact that it was a priest and the president of a Catholic university were like, I believe in you. God made a way for Rudy's dreams to come true after all those years of work and facing these odds. And that's the kind of God that we serve. He is a way maker. And he doesn't always come through the way we think. He didn't make Rudy any bigger. He didn't make Rudy's dyslexia go away. He didn't make it easy for Rudy. He didn't just pave the way. Rudy had to work for it. Rudy had to have faith that somehow it was going to work out, even though it seemed impossible. And that's the kind of God we serve. You see these kinds of stories in the Bible all the time. One of my favorite stories in the Bible of this, one that I personally cling to often, is the story of Abraham. So Abraham was just a guy trying to live his life. And he and his wife Sarai, his name was Abram at the time, he and his wife Sarai were farmers, just living their life. And one day God came to him and he said, hey man, I want you to go that way. And he's like, I want you to go. Pack up your family and go that way. And as they were traveling along, they get to this really nice area. And God says, I tell you what, man, to your offspring, I'm going to give this land. And Abe's 75 at this time. Abe's got to be thinking, to my offspring? Lord, 75. My daughter, or my wife she was probably like 65. And many of you women know what happens at 65. It's not likely to have a child at 65. But Abram's like, okay, man, I'm going to believe you. And then all this other stuff happened. They were raided. His nephew was kidnapped. He gave his wife away to somebody at one point in time he took her back, and all this stuff happened. And then God's like, dude, I told you, I'm going to help you out. He says, after the word of the Lord came and said, don't be afraid. I'm going to be your shield. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to be your reward. And Abram's like, God, how can you give me all this stuff? You've promised me that my family line is going to have this land. My family is going to be this great big family. But I don't have any kids. And I'm 75. And God says, he says, Sovereign Lord, you gave me this, but I'm childless. Who's going to inherit my state? This guy, Eliezer of Damascus? You've not given me any kids. So now my servant's going to get all my stuff? That's dumb. What the heck, God? You brought me all the way out here and made me go through all that so you can give everything I've worked hard for to my servant's kid? That doesn't seem very fair. And God said, that man's not going to be your heir. A son from your own flesh and blood is going to be your heir. So he took him outside. He said, look up into the sky. Count the stars, if you can. And then he said, that's how many offspring you're going to have. Can you count the stars? I just saw a thing. There's like billions of universes. And within those billions of universes, there's millions of stars or whatever. Like, that's how many kids Abraham's going to have. And he's like, okay, I don't have any kids right now. I'm getting pretty old. I don't know how I'm going to have billions of kids. But he trusted him. He said, Lord, I don't get it. But I trust you, and I'm going to keep doing what you say. And so they keep going on, keep on keeping on. Eventually, because Sarai, his wife, heard this. Eventually, she's like, okay, we've been trying, but there are no kids. So I guess I'm the problem, because God made this promise to Abram, not to me. And so she's like, here, sleep with my maid. Let her give you some kids. And so he does. Dumb husbands. Come on. But he does. And she has a kid. But God comes to him later and is like, dude, no, stop trying to do it on your own. Stop trying to figure it out yourself. I'm going to take care of this. And so then he comes to him and he says, this is Abraham. Oh, sorry, I forgot that slide. But then God says, no. I'm telling you, from Sarai, your wife. Don't call her Sarai anymore. She's going to be Sarah because I'm going to bless her. I'm going to give her a son. And I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Okay, I wasn't clear with you before. I said you're going to have lots of kids. Okay, I get it. I was not clear. I do this with my students. I tell them something, and then they make up their own mind. I'm like, no, okay. I recognize I did not give you clear instructions. God's like, okay, Abe, I recognize that I did not give you clear instructions. You and Sarai are going to be the parents of nations. You and Sarai are going to be the ones with all the kids that number the stars. We're going to call her Sarah now. We're going to call you Abraham now. Because all these kings and all these people are come from you and Sarah. And Sarah heard this. I didn't put this in here. She laughed. She's like, God, you crazy. Abraham was 99. Sarah was like 90. She's like, God, you crazy. I am 90 years old. And you think I'm going to have a kid now? And God's like, yep. And sure enough, it says, here it is. Abraham laughed. He says, will a son be born to a man of 100 years old? And will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham said, if only Ishmael, that's the maid's son, could have your blessing. God's like, no. Sarah is going to bear you a son, and you're going to call him Isaac. And I'm going to establish my covenant with Isaac, and it's going to be an everlasting covenant. And all of his descendants after him are going to come from him. And you know what? Isaac came. Isaac had 2 kids. So Abraham had 1 with Sarah. Isaac had 2. And then one of them had 12. And then those 12 became the millions. If you know the story of Moses taking the millions of people out of Egypt, that was Abraham's kids. And those millions, every Muslim, every Christian in the world, there's another one. I'm losing my mind. Muslims, Christians, and the Middle East. What's the religion? Anyways. They're all from Abraham. They all believe in God because of Abraham. Because Abraham believed. And Abraham went. God didn't give him a map. God didn't say, most of us, if God came to me and said, pack up your car with everything you want to have, and just start heading south, and I'm going to bless you. Most of us would be like, Lord, I need to put a destination in my Google Maps. He didn't have Google Maps. He didn't give him a map. He just said, go that way. Pack up your whole family and go that way. Leave all the security and all the friends and family and everything that you know and trust behind and go that way. And Abraham's like, okay, it don't make any sense, but all right. And he did it. And then God said, oh, you're 90-something, you're 75, you're going to have a bunch of kids. Oh, you're 85, I'm going to give you millions of kids. Oh, you're 99 and your wife is 90, I'm still going to give you a kid. Most people are like, you are crazy. That can't happen. I'm too old. But Abraham believed it. And Rudy believed that he could do it when no one else did. Rudy believed that he could play for Notre Dame football even though he was too small and not smart enough. And God came through. Because that's the kind of God we serve, a way-making God. And I know I've told you guys this before. I have dreamed of having a husband forever. And years ago, God showed me a picture of my wedding. I gave up on it. I finally was like, all right, God, I guess you want me to be single. Fine. And God showed me a picture of my wedding. And God showed me a picture of my husband and my kid. I don't know how it's going to happen. I'm getting old. I'm a lot like Sarah. I can take a lot from Sarah's story. I take a lot of encouragement from that story because I can resonate with it. I know what Abraham is feeling. People think I'm weird. They're like, what is wrong with you because you're not married and you don't have kids? Like my students ask me, Miss Wolf, how many kids you have? I said, well, I don't have any kids. What do you mean you don't have kids? What's wrong with you? They don't say that, but I can tell that's what they mean. What's wrong with you? What do you mean? I said, I don't have a husband. They're like, so? Why don't you have kids? It is hard to be a single person and wishing for something that seems impossible. My whole life, it has seemed impossible, and yet I still believe. I still believe it. I still thank God in advance for my husband. I pray for my marriage that hasn't yet happened. That seems impossible. It seems absolutely impossible. Just as impossible as it seemed for Sarah at 75, 85, 95 to have a kid. I still believe it. And nearly all of my friends and family say I'm crazy and I should move on and I should just try to do it on my own. I should just do it on my own. I should figure it out on my own. Like, oh no, I know what happens when you try it on your own. You have an Ishmael. I'm not going to be Hagar and Ishmael got shoved out in the desert on their own to starve to death. No, thank you. I will trust God. Even when it seems impossible, I will trust God. That's why Waymaker is one of my favorite songs, because when it seems impossible, I just sing that song to myself and remind myself that God comes through when it seems impossible. And so if you need a little extra, if Waymaker doesn't do it for you, you can use Isaiah 40. It says he gives strength to the weary. He increases the power of the weak. Even when the youth, young people with stamina, get tired and weary, young men stumble and fall because life is hard and they're getting the crap knocked out of them. But those who hope in the Lord, he will renew their strength. God renews your strength. They're going to soar on eagle's wings. Anyone know that Catholic song? My former Catholics, we know that song. You know, just because you've been in. And they'll raise you up on eagle's wings. And they will run, and they will not grow weary. They will walk and not grow faint. When you don't think you have the faith it takes to take another step forward, when you don't think you have the strength to get through another hard day, when it seems like everything's impossible and everyone's telling you it's never going to happen, give up. Why are you trying to think of this stupid thing that's just not going to happen? We remember Abraham. We remember people like Rudy. You guys, Rudy's not just fiction. That was based on a real story. That really happened to somebody. Because God comes through. He didn't just stop coming through when Jesus came along. God is still coming through today. And so I beseech you, if I will, to trust God when it seems impossible. To sing to yourself Waymaker. To read to yourself something like Isaiah. To remember that God comes through when it's impossible. And he doesn't always come through the way you think he will. It doesn't always look the way you think it will. Sometimes it does, and a lot of times it takes you through a hard season. Abraham had to go through a lot of fighting. He had to live in the desert in tents. It was tough. He had to go through a lot of hard stuff to get to the promise that God made for him. But he did, because he kept trusting God even when it was hard. So this week, I want you to think about, what is your broken dream? What's that thing that you feel like God is like, nope, I'm not doing that for you? Whether it's a work rejection. Maybe you keep getting passed over for a promotion. Maybe it's a relationship that just can't seem to get fixed. Maybe your kids are struggling with something and it seems like they're never going to get past it. Maybe you have your own personal struggle that you just can't seem to get over. Maybe you're dealing with some really hard thing that seems like you're just never going to get through it. God comes through. Write that down. Surrender, give it to God. Be like, Lord, I can't do this. I can't. I've tried every way that I know how, and it's just not working. So here, take it. Fix it. Like when your kid tries something and it's broken and they finally bring it to you and you can fix it. God's like, bring it to me. I can fix it. Ask God, what is this path I'm on? Where are you leading me to? Where do you want me to go? What do you need me to let go of? If Abraham hadn't been willing to let go of the security of his family, he would have never reached that promised land. So what are you holding on to that is preventing God from giving you the thing that he wants to give to you? And then you could read Abraham's story in Genesis 15, or you could read and memorize Isaiah 40. And then to engage, find someone who needs that encouragement. Be the best friend that Rudy had. Be that voice to somebody instead of the Debbie Downer. Be the person that when someone shares something like, I feel like God wants me to do this impossible thing, be that person that says, you know what, God can do anything. I bet you can do it. I'm going to pray for that. Or if you've been through a situation like that, when you know, share that story with them. Share a time when God came through for you when something seemed impossible. Be a person who gives hope. Don't be a person who douses dreams. God can do all things, but we have to trust him first. We have to take that first step of trust to leave the security of everything I know and go to the place where he tells us to go. And all of God's children said, Amen.